Well, not right now. I think currently we're just trying to make sure we get through recruiting, and then we'll sit down when all that's over and get a plan for spring practice and sit down and look and evaluate everybody and make some decisions then probably.
Did you or make or planning to make any staff changes on your assistants?
I think that what you do is I don't have any plans set in stone right now, but when we finish recruiting, we'll sit down and go over everything.
It could be. I mean, nobody. It's not like.
Well, I don't have in my mind. I don't have anybody in my mind right now. I know I'm gonna fire. No.
But you just that's just the way you do it.
Yeah, we sit down and talk and go back and forth and.
Coach, I'll put it a pretty story with recruiting. Is there any one thing in players you're looking for in your group players? Is there any certain I guess they would want to play the game, or is there anything in particular you're
Well, I just think you look for good players. I mean, everybody looks for the same thing. Good athletes, the best athletes you can find, and everybody has the needs that for their team, what they feel like will make them a better team. Some years you're a little more heavy with linemen, some years skilled guys. It really just depends on who you have coming back and how that goes,
Give an update on Julian and kind of where he stands right now.
He's been working out running. He's been going through all the workouts. We'll sit down and visit with him when once recruiting's over and come up with a plan.
Did he have a concussion in that game in the Sun Bowl? Or?
I don't think he had a concussion, no.
Do you expect him to be ready once spring?
I don't know. We'll sit down and evaluate where he's at with the doctors and with Julian and see what happens.
We talked to, I imagine at this point you've talked to all the guys who are close to graduating or would graduate before the next season starts. Do you know which ones are staying or going?
I know some that are going, but that's always could change. But there's a couple guys who are already gone who would have eligibility left. I think B.J. Machen. He took a job with Microsoft. For one, I think he's already gone. So there'll probably be two or three of those guys. There always are.
You say there's a couple that are already gone. Is there anyone besides BJ that you can?
BJ's the only one I can think of off the top of my head that's already left. Yeah.
Daniel McCain up in the air, or is that
About what?
about staying or coming back?
Probably a lot of it will depend on if he graduates in the spring. I think, a lot of those guys have to see how school unfolds and if they get their degree, and then they have to make a decision on whether or not they're going to grad school, whether or not they can get into grad school here. A lot of things have to unfold. I don't know that it's ever cut and dried, but anybody who is as a general rule, anybody who has a year of eligibility left, who has their degree and is not a starter, there's always a chance that they're not going to come back to school. I mean, if you think about it, sometimes it makes sense. I mean, if you have the right job offer and you're going to come back and be a backup and you don't know if you'll get the same job offer in December, then, the reason you came to school was to get your degree and get a job for most people. So that might be different if you were the best player and the starter and, you're trying to get to the next level and all those things. But for guys who've kind of hit their ceiling playing wise, they have to decide, well, do I come back and take 12 hours of classes that I don't really need or want to be a backup and cover kicks? Or do I go on and take a job? Now, if I can't find a job that I want, then maybe I come back. So it's kind of a moving target sometimes.
Coach, when you plan your recruiting class, do you try to anticipate some of those?
Yeah, you always build some in. I mean, thus, I think we had 12 seniors. So you always build in some room for, for other guys. And In my mind, I've got a pretty good idea of some guys who won't be back, but I don't think it's confirmed yet. So, I'm not going to come out and tell you who they are until it's confirmed.
There's one more question on recruiting. Is when you look at high school players, does their stats for the high school season, does that have a lot of effect on what you look at?
Not really. I think you look at the whole picture. You're not so worried about stats as you are just their ability and their athletic ability and their size and how do they fit your scheme or your system. And, beauty's in the eyes of the beholder sometimes. Some guys might like one guy and other guys don't. But some guys fit one scheme better than others. So you're just trying to find the best players you can find. You got to weigh the character into it. How do they do academically, certainly here. I mean, at Tech, it's not just enough to get them here. Can they function here? You don't want to bring in a bunch of guys who can't function in school. They're going to be miserable. So there's a lot that goes into it.
You know, kind of in your mind what you're going to sign in terms of numbers?
I do. Do you?
I have a pretty good idea.
What do you think?
I think 20, 21,
We'll see.
which is up from 12.
Well, I can promise you it'll be more than 12.
How important is it to sign a kicker? Is it the right one that has to come up, or is it?
I don't know that. I don't even think we visited a kicker, so we probably aren't going to sign one. We've got Justin's on scholarship. Just a couple years ago, I think he was the top-rated kicker in the state, and I think he's capable. Scully's kick. We've got 4 or 5 kickers now. If we found the right one. Just like with anything, if we thought we could go get a guy who would immediately make us better, then you'd take him. But we're not just going to go take a kicker.
So you feel like it's too late in the process now to do that?
To do what? Find one?
Yeah.
I don't know about late in the process. They're just hard to find. And it's like anything else. If you miss on a kid who plays defensive back, maybe he could be a receiver, maybe he could be an A-back, maybe he could be whatever. You take a kicker who can't kick, pal, you got him. He's not turning into anything else. So that's why most people have those guys walk on, and whoever earns the job they put on scholarship most of the time, unless you've got one that you just know looks like a can't miss. We thought we had one of those. So you just, you see. It's just a process. I mean, if you talk about all the kickers, I can think Rob Baronis walked on at Georgia Southern. Guy kicks for the Titans. We had All-American Tim Foley who walked on. Scott Blair was a walk-on here. I think the guy before him walked on. I mean, that's usually the way it works with most kickers.
We've heard a little bit that this is a somewhat smaller school, and
Do I now?
that Georgia Tech's may be a smaller school in terms of
It's harder for us to get walk-ons. It's harder to get in school, yeah. Just a normal guy, it's a tough place to get into school. But we have a lot of walk-on kickers. We've got 4 or 5 guys who will walk on this year kickers.
You comment on Phil Smith and his merger?
Not much to comment on. I mean, hopefully he'll graduate this spring, and if he wants to go play somewhere else, so I've given him his release.
Assess the job that Coach Grow and the defensive staff has done.
How do I what?
Assess the job that Coach Grow and the defensive staff has done since he's got it.
Well, I think it's like everything else. Probably there's been some good and some bad, and a lot of things we need to get better at. I think that there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration, and then there's a lot of things we're going to talk about when the thing's over. If I didn't think they were doing a credible job, I'd make changes. But can we play better? Sure, we can play better on offense, special teams, everywhere. So we'll sit down and talk about all that when recruiting's over. Well, it'll be debatable. I mean, that's for people to debate. I talked to Stephen and his family. I gave them my take, and they had their take, and they have to make a decision that they think's best for them. So, you know, I wish him the best. I hope that he gets drafted in the first round. That'd be great. You know, I know that there's a lot of factors that go into those things that everybody don't realize. So, would we have liked to had him back? Sure. I think he would have gotten better. But, you know, he had to make the decision that he and his family thought were best for them, and they made it.
How will you kind of thought about what you're going to do in terms of, you have 4 quarterbacks in the spring, in terms of repping everybody and splitting them up and that kind of stuff, or will you just rotate them? Or
We'll just go out there and flip a coin every day. Yeah, we thought about it. I don't know that we've got anything set in stone. I mean, but yeah, we're going to find out who can play.
an open competition?
Well, I don't know if it's an open competition. I mean, you got a kid who's coming back as a 2-year starter. They got to beat him out. Do I think it's impossible to beat him out? No. But I'm not going to, say it's wide open. I mean, the kid started for 2 years. I think he's earned that right.
Paul, were you watching when Bebe had made that play in overtime a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I saw it. Mm-hmm.
What was your reaction?
It didn't surprise me. I mean, he's a great player. He makes plays, and I was really happy for him. I know he's battled some injuries and done some things. And we swapped text right after the game. Told him I was proud of him, and that was it. But it didn't surprise me.
Different subject. What parts of recruiting do you most, for lack of another word, enjoy, and what parts of it do you least embrace? And has the dynamics changed dramatically in your career?
I don't think the recruiting dynamics have changed. Well, maybe some with all the social media and everybody wanting to know what's going on 24/7 and all the misinformation that's out there. I think what happens in general, maybe in media today anyway, but for certain in recruiting, is somebody will see a story on one of the sites and then they'll use that as a source 5 times, and that's the original one might not have been right. I read one today I saw on recruiting. I was looking where I had a great in-home visit with this kid, and I wasn't even there. Amazing.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. So it's those kind of things. That's different. But as far as the actual recruiting goes, I think you enjoy being around people and talking to them and trying to sell what you have to sell. If you don't embrace it, you won't last long. It's a major part of what we have to do.
Are you